our December 8th official meeting. With new business item 12B. City Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is ordinance number 2016-4 of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, changing the zoning of the property described in Exhibit A from the city zoning of medium-density multifamily residential MF30 to a City of Lake Worth zoning of downtown PT, running a conflicting ordinance to repeal, providing for severance, and providing an effective date.
Okay. Now, this is a quasi-judicial process, correct? And I know that there are certain steps that we have to take in accordance with the law, so would you...
Kind of prep everything?
Yeah,
Okay.
or prep me to.
So, first, in a quasi-judicial proceeding, the commission is really essentially the judge, like a judge and a jury. So, they've got to base their decision on testimony on the record, so they're going to time where if you're going to testify, you'll be sworn in. If any of the many members of the commission have had what's called ex parte communication, in other words, private conversations, this is a good time to disclose. So has anybody had those kind of conversations? Commissioner McBoy?
Commissioner McCoy?
I was contacted by, and forgive me because I always get confused if it's Michael Stevens or Stephen Michaels, but the same person. And he asked to meet. I said I would get back to him. I thought of this issue and said, you know what, I'm not comfortable doing that. That was the extent of our communication.
So then, the way the procedure will work is...
Well, I want to go through everyone one by one.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Vice Mayor? Okay. I've received phone calls, but I have not met with anyone, and I did visit the property right after it was purchased, and actually got to walk through the building, but that had nothing to do with this.
Not on this issue, and I have not visited the building.
Not on this issue. Okay.
Thank you. And then staff will then make the presentation. And I know we have a lot of comment cards, so for the members of the audience, let me explain that process for you all. If you want your testimony to be part of the record, so that when the commission considers what they're going to decide tonight, then when you come up, and we'll break it, talk to the families, we're going to break it into two groups. If you're going to testify, you'll come up in the first group of folks, and as you come up, you'll swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and then you will testify. You will be subject to cross-examination by either the city staff or the applicant. I don't know if there'll be a lot of that, but that's part of the, when you testify. For those people that don't want to testify, don't want to be under oath and have whatever they say just be under public comment, that would be the second group of folks. You're not going to be cross-examined, but your comments will not be given much weight, frankly, because you're not under oath and it's not real evidence. So that way there's a choice as your card is read. And if you, I would suggest if you want to just be public comment, just let the mayor know that, just put your card towards the back. That way, at least the commission's hearing all the testimony at one time, they get it. And then the applicant does a presentation, they have a chance, they'll be under oath as well, and the staff and can also ask them questions. So did that adequately explain the
Now,
process?
in doing so, how, based on the order in which these cards were given to me, how will I be able to?
I think it's when you call the name out, if the person is saying they'd rather not testify, I put their card to the back. Yes, no, it's too many people for mass because you're not sure who walked in later, so it just takes a second each time someone comes up, we'll swear them in, that way we know for sure on the record they've been sworn in.
City attorney, she has quite a few people that have given something to read and they're not here, so they would go to the back of the line, correct?
Yes.
Okay, correct.
Okay, so any of these included ones?
Those would go to the back, because they're not even here.
Okay.
And that's because if you're not here, obviously you can't be sworn in, and so that would be a matter of public comment as opposed to testimony.
Okay, so we'll just go through the, Commissioner McCoy?
I guess it's a question for our city attorney, and that is, if we had people who emailed in things and asked that their comments be included, obviously they wouldn't be testimony.
But they still can be considered. Again, you would give them, presumably, you give them less weight, just as any judge would, because it's not under oath, it's not entitled to the same weight as testimony, that's...
Sure, no, I understand that, but is there a mechanism that we can read their stuff or
Certainly,
summarize it or something?
Sure, you can read it, and you can say, Ms. Jones sent me an email, and this is what she said. I would suggest you pass it to the mayor, since she's going to be reading all the public comment, that's the equivalent of a public comment. So if you have something in writing...
So is that different from, in the past, we were told that if someone did not submit their comment here and fill out a card, that they couldn't be considered, is that not correct, Pamela? Well, we've had that was a long time ago, but we had that if somebody didn't submit their card in person, that we couldn't.
That is correct. There's a couple of things going on, and the policies are in the back. A member of the public had to be present and submit their card for comments, and then could leave because of timing or just couldn't stay, and those could be read into the record. Bulk comments could not be submitted because they basically became a petition. Emails from the general public, if they were directed to a staff member, could not be accepted. However, if those emails were copied or somehow sent to the elected officials, it is at the sole discretion of the elected officials to decide whether or not they wanted to read that comment from the email.
Okay,
Okay?
okay. Vice Mayor?
I've got a little bit of a question, just to clear this up. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, and I'm not quite sure why, and follow my logic here. The previous item that we just voted on was a rezoning of some property in one part of the city. The item that we're taking up tonight is rezoning of some property here in the city. So could somebody distinguish why this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and more importantly, to me, if we're here sitting here as a judge, as judges, that it tells me that there's some sort of a conflict here, or there's something that needs to be vetted out that we have to judge. And I'm not really sure where we are with that. Does that make sense?
That's a good point, actually. What is the difference between the two?
It's slightly different, and we're just being a little more specific with it, because this is the first time, in my recollection, and it's probably the first time in at least the past 15 years, the city's ever chosen to rezone a property from what it was originally zoned under the authorization of the City Commission adopting an ordinance. In this case, we adopted the land development regulations in August of 2013, which were directed by the adoption of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan in August of 2012. The previous request was a request for initial zoning. That was going to be, you're coming into the city, what zoning are we going to give them versus what the county had. So it's a little bit different. Some of the requirements that you go through are similar, but in this case, we adopted a policy that facilitated zoning in the city, the comprehensive plan, and we gave zoning categories under our new zoning regulations. And this is a request to change some of those parcels that were originally zoned multifamily 30 to a zoning classification that's downtown. And so we made a decision about something, and now we're revisiting and looking at how we are putting in place our future land use element. And so that's where it becomes a little more quasi-judicial in nature and a little more specific.
I'd like to go a little deeper on that, frankly, because, you know, I understand what I'm hearing you say is the previous item we heard was initial zoning. I get that, okay? And I can see this is a little bit different because we had something on the books and that we want to modify, essentially. What my conflict is coming here is, what's to judge here? It's a matter of us deciding, as a body, I would think, do we want to change the rules, so to speak? And how does this, I mean, at what point did it become a quasi-judicial function, and what's the necessity for that, as opposed to just a general, you know, conversation, presentation by all the parties and public comment?
I'll attempt part of that. Our code, let's just back up a minute. In the state of Florida, under Florida statute, municipalities are only allowed to do what they are authorized to do by Florida statute. Our comprehensive plan is probably one of the most tightly written one in the entire state. We just put into place 3 months ago the process by which you could request a rezoning or a change in your comp plan designation for the amendment to the LDRs that went into effect, I believe, sometime in October. And this is the first request underneath that portion of the code. Our land development regulations are also very tight, because if you really spend some time looking at them, the parameters of the comprehensive plan are almost mirrored within the parameters that are in the various zoning classifications that are there. It would be one reason why it would be quasi-judicial, and we're following the process as stipulated. In another jurisdiction, and I'm using that as an example, somebody could come in and request, I want to change my future land use element, and I want to change my zoning. Many other cities' comprehensive plans leave gigantic windows open in them, but they can do that. It's happened in West Palm almost on an every other month basis. Our code, however, is written such that it would be very, very difficult for someone to come in they would have to argue and provide substantial competent evidence that their request to change their comprehensive plan designation or their zoning met the criteria of the comprehensive plan. We've written it such that it doesn't really facilitate changing very much, whereas other municipalities leave it far more open. In all the meetings that we had over I don't know how many years, there was a great, vast majority of opinion that they wanted things, the citizens and the residents' partners, as tight as possible, but also predictable. So we've written a series of regulations, comprehensive plan, and zoning code like that. So making changes to them does fall under the auspices of a quasi-judicial hearing.
Okay. Anything to add, Bud?
No.
Okay. Okay. Shall we?
I will try to be brief, but you all know that I'm not always the briefest person in the world, but I will do my best. The executive brief, which was provided before you this evening, does give a sort of description of the request. The current property is known as the Gulfstream, which I think almost everybody is familiar with. It is the most preeminent landmark in the city. Comprises of 7 parcels. A couple of those parcels include 0.93 acres, which are zoned downtown, and the rest of the parcels comprise, 8.89 is zoned downtown, and 0.93 is zoned multifamily 30. Even though it's been reviewed at least once for a previous project as a unified project of property, and we anticipate that coming forward in the future. Just off of this page, you can see what is what. And I'm going to pull up our fancy map from the Property Appraiser's office. This is the existing hotel on its parcel, and this large vacant parcel next door. Those are the 2 that are zoned downtown, and these other 5 here are zoned multifamily 30. But this was all bought as one transaction when Hudson Holdings purchased the property and closed on it in May of 2014. The request before you tonight is to unify it under one zoning classification downtown. It does not change the fact that it's in a historic district. It does not change the fact that it's a contributing property, and it does not change the various requirements for anything happening here to be compatible with the historic district and follow Secretary of Interior standards and the guidelines we've adopted for ensuring that new construction is compatible and appropriate within a historic district. What it does do in the request, it does follow the dictates of our comprehensive plan, which I referred to earlier, and I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, and hopefully it does not give the general public a headache.
Or seasickness.
This is our future land use map as it sits today. And the Gulfstream sits here. When we were working together in a collaborative effort over at least the years that I started in 2011 through 2012, we identified this general area in the light pink as being our downtown core. Not all of it was at that time zoned downtown under the previous zoning code, but it was envisioned that over time our downtown would grow and expand and encompass this area and support and serve as a central business district as well as a central historic area of the city. When we adopted the zoning map commensurate with that, which happened in August of 2013, we did very little changes to, we kept zoning that was very close to what was the previous zoning under the old code. Downtown sort of stayed downtown, multifamily stayed multifamily 30. We did downzone a number of areas from multifamily 30, multifamily 20 to single family. But in general, the area that was a downtown zone in the old code is now a downtown in the new code. And that's shown in this little pink area. Those are all of our parcels that are currently zoned downtown. But please recall that this area here has been designated as a future element of what our future downtown will be as it grows and evolves over time. So the request is to rezone these little parcels that are in brown in compliance with the policies and procedures and objectives of our comprehensive plan to be downtown. The case was heard by the Historic Resource Preservation Board, recommended unanimously to recommend to you to rezone the property with one condition specifically that was recommended by staff, is that the zoning would go into effect whereupon there was provided to the city a unity of title. So that would tie all these properties together as one property. The Preservation Board also wanted you to consider requiring that the property be, if it's developed with a new construction, that it be sensitive, harmonious, and complementary to the historic districts that are around it. And this little pink line shows where our historic district is, and we have a variety of uses, a rather tall condominium building, shorter multifamily building, single-family residential. That will be taken into consideration at some time in the future when a site plan is submitted before the Preservation Board under a certificate of appropriateness application and a conditional land use. Provided in your staff report as backup to the actual staff report is a rather lengthy staff report from for the Preservation Board, which I won't go into unless you have questions, but it goes over the various aspects from our rezoning request process in the zoning code. Since there is not a project that's actually specific to this,
This is a different one.
wrong one up there. Sorry, I thought I turned all this off.
No.
Yes.
So the backup goes in item for item, how the request conforms to the requirements of the comprehensive plan and follows the dictates of the rezoning process as adopted by the commission a few months ago as part of the land development regulations. I'm gonna leave it there, so I'm sure we're gonna get a whole bunch of questions and I wanna be able to answer those specifically and not get it murked up with a bunch of other stuff. The applicant is here and has a presentation to go over, but in summary, staff and the Historic Resource Preservation Board felt that the rezoning request did meet all the requirements stipulated under our comprehensive plan and the process to rezone property in the city under the land development regulations. It was supported by the documentation provided by the applicant. Though we don't have a site plan, we do anticipate one, and that will start another process, which we did spend time talking about it on the previous 3 ordinances. It'll go through the site plan review team, it will go to the Historic Resource Preservation Board. It may end up coming before you for an approval of one sort or another. We do think it's very important to keep in mind the unity of title requirement, which can be facilitated between first reading of this ordinance and second. So when we have second reading, if we get to there, the owner can provide the unity of title, and then the ordinance would go into effect, I believe, 10 days after for the statutes. So I'm going to stop there before we get too much in the weeds, and if you want to hear from Ms. Miskell, the applicant, we can do that.
It's required that we do the presentation by the applicant. Well, welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the commission. My name is Lonnie Miskell, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I am a land use and zoning attorney rolling into my 24th year, although I'm sure I don't look that old. And we gave a very detailed presentation, and I know the hour is late, so I'm gonna try to shorten it somewhat. And I'm sure those that were here before will be a little less bored, hopefully. But my client is the property owner, and they have petitioned to rezone a portion of the overall property that they own to the DT zoning category from the residential multifamily 30. And here we go. Okay. All right. This is an overall aerial showing where the property is that they own. They own both the red, which is zoned DT currently, and they own the blue, which is the subject of this request that we're requesting to be rezoned. And just to give you a larger depiction, the property is generally located south of Lake Avenue, on the west side of Gulfstream, east and contiguous to Lakeside Drive, and the most southerly point is on First Street, or Ave, excuse me. It is the blue area, which is currently occupied by perhaps one dilapidated residential building and a 73 spot parking, surface parking. just to understand what is around us. You adopted in September criteria for rezonings that we must submit and meet in order for this commission to favorably approve our rezoning request. And those criteria speak to compatibility and consistency, but because I have to make a record, I'm going to go over each one. But it is important to understand what is around us in order for us to be able to make that argument. So obviously the beach and the casino property is to the east, the municipal golf course is to the northeast. We have Bryant Park east. We have the downtown shopping area in the core, which as Mr. Waters mentioned, was the pink area designated DMU under land use. This is your future land use map, and this is your downtown core right here. And we are over in this area of the core, entirely located within the downtown core. There's the property to be rezoned next to the property that my client also owns. This is your zoning map, which you can see the lines of your DMU central core. And as you can also note, the red is a commercial category. The vast majority of this DMU land use property is mixed use and commercial. There are some remnants. This is a duplex residential and this is a multifamily residential. But the primary activity here in your core is mixed use, retail, and office. And that just goes through what we talked about. The request today is to rezone approximately 0.93 acres from MF 30, medium density multifamily residential, 30 dwelling units to the acre, to the downtown DT zoning district. We did provide with our application, it should be a part of your backup, a conceptual site plan. The law doesn't really let you look at site plans, so you can't, although we have spent and invested a great deal of money putting this together, and we have a full submittal that we're ready, that we're poised to file in the event that this should get approved, that mirrors what you're looking at. Some of the compatibility issues I think can be addressed by looking at this particular concept plan. The historic hotel, the Gulfstream Hotel, is located here in the northeast corner. There is a one-story addition proposed to the back side of the hotel. This is the Annex Hotel, and this is a structured parking wrapped with a retail use along South Lakeside Drive. We also have proposed a pedestrian corridor running along the front of the building. The original, the former hotel, I know it's dark today, was approximately 105 rooms. This is proposed actually to be a few less on this side at about 87, with approximately 87 in the annex. It will also include a restaurant and other hotel, high-end hotel amenities, combined with the retail that's proposed for South Lakeside Drive to support and make that hotel use much more viable and enable it to survive going forward. This is the area that is subject to the zoning request. This building is currently set, well, I'm going to get into that. Well, I just did. This building is the historic Gulfstream Hotel, and it is currently 6 stories. This one, as I mentioned before, this one will be 5 stories with also 87 rooms. And this is proposed to be 2 stories of parking, and again, wrapped with retail. The concept here is to step the project down in being sensitive to what is south of us, and I'm going to get into the specifics of what is around us. So, we have on our northwest corner a 66-foot tall 5-story building known as the Lake Ave Lofts. We have a Dollar General, one story immediately across general commercial property. We have the Fleur de Lis, if I pronounce that correctly, I'm not a very good French person here, 60 feet, 7 stories, which is actually taller than the existing hotel. We have the golf course, we have the park, and then as number 5, we have, and actually the they're combined. The Gulfstream condos are number 5 and 6 on this map. They're between 65 feet and 80 feet in height, 7 stories. And then number 7, which is right here on the southeast corner of the site, is a 2-story building, 20 feet. Again, the concept, as a concept plan reflected, we're going from 6 to 5 down to 2 in an effort to be compatible with our neighbors, which here is our 2-story building and everything else is higher. Then to the south of us, and I left out one of the ladies that was here last time, her property, which is south of First, are primarily 1 and 2-story buildings. Number 8 is shown as a 1-story, but there are also some 2 stories contiguous to it, and it's a mix in here of 1 and 2 stories. Number 9 is also 2 stories, again, next to our 2-story parking, or 2-level parking structure and our 1-story retail wrap. And then we have 10 and 11, which go from 2 stories on 10 to 5 stories on 11, and then again up to 5 stories on Lake Avenue. So that gives you a sense of what is around us, you know, from the perspective of what is compatible. Okay. So your criteria that was adopted a few months ago, the first one is consistency with the purpose and intent of the comp plan, redevelopment plans, and the land development regulations. We've given you a thick package of the goals, policies, and objectives that we're consistent with. In fact, it's really hard to find any goals, policies, and objectives in your DMU category, which is the pink area, that we are not compatible with. The DMU, the downtown mixed-use land use category, which is outlined in pink, provides in the intent section of the comp plan that it is intended to provide for the establishment and expansion of a broad range of office, retail, and commercial uses, including higher intensity commercial within the traditional downtown core of the city. What's absent from that intent was residential. Yet you do have residential in the downtown mixed core. Again, it's intended to provide for it. Obviously, there are other uses that are permitted, but they are permitted in a more ancillary measure. Your DMU, the area in pink, the area that we are wholly within, intends to provide for a broad range of office, retail, and commercial uses, and that's exactly what we're doing this evening. So we are consistent with the intent of the DMU. The approval of the rezoning will allow the expansion and renovation of, and I guess, the rejuvenation of the historic Gulfstream Hotel. I think I'm gonna, if I can't briefly, I'm gonna go through these very, very quickly because they are in your package. But the sections that we're referring to are within your comprehensive plan element. It talks about the provision of retail surrounding structured parking garages on the ground floor. That's exactly what we're doing over here, compliant with that. The design of the street corner at the intersection of Lake and South Lakeside to incorporate a pedestrian use area, that's exactly what's happening here.